And when somebody would do something like this, the adults in the room would say, no, that's ridiculous. And then they would go on and do something different. But I have to say that they don't seem like there are any adults in the room anymore.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Sedition podcast. I'm Nate Brady alongside my co-host Mike Smith.
And I'm Mike Smith.
You're
How
Mike
y'all
Smith?
doing today?
Mike, I'm sorry to do this to you. We had somewhat of an agenda today. We like to at least try and plan out at least a general outline.
I'd like to have talking points.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to come somewhat prepared to talk about things.
Somewhat
politically.
And then, as happens the last, couple of weeks, a number of things have transpired in the last literally half hour. I mean, I think one of the things we're going to talk about happened 39 minutes ago. That I think we just need to switch gears and talk about those things, because
I'm ready.
That's what's
Let's
hot.
do it.
We have a number of appointments already, some that of course need to be confirmed by the Senate, by Donald Trump. We have, I think I'd like to talk about 4 or 5 of those. The border czar, new director of national intelligence, his appointment for attorney general, which is absolutely insane.
Announced of us doing our preview warm-up for the podcast today. Just fantastic timing as always. Thank you, Trump.
Oh my lord.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So let's go into it. So who do you
dive in.
Who would you like to talk about first? I mean, I guess we have
which of those 3 appointments is the least meaningful?
Oh wow, least meaningful?
Yeah, I mean, let's say that he appointed Satan to one of these roles, and their entire goal was to be as evil and malicious as possible in those roles. Which one would be the most benign or the least malignant?
That's a hard question.
Hard.
I mean, what do you say? Okay, so I mean, that said, I'm going to probably go on the opposite end of that, because honestly, it's all the same. This could go terribly, right? Right. And I think we'll go with one of the we'll start with Tom Homan, who is somebody we already know from Trump's first administration as somebody who is as about as bad as it gets. So I'll start here with a 30-second clip, and then we can talk a little bit about what makes this guy so terrible. But you'll get to see some of that here. So let me play that for you.
Okay.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
Nope, don't like that. That's not a thing I'm enjoying.
So there you go. Sorry if there was a bit of an echo there at the beginning. I just realized I didn't have the old headphones in. But I don't.
That's not good.
Huh? It was good. Okay. Well, anyway. So there's that guy. If you remember the family separation policies from the first Trump administration, then you're probably pretty familiar with this guy.
So I want to ask.
Okay.
You talk about the first term's family separations. When you say that, in my mind, that evokes the notions of migrants at the border who are seeking asylum and coming in, not necessarily people who are already in the country illegally. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So I would say that in 2017, God, I'm going to forget her name. The former advisor, Olivia Troy, the former advisor, Homeland Security advisor to Mike Pence, criticized Homan for being extreme and ineffective, and said that his policies targeted all immigrants, not just those with criminal records, not just those who were, it's certainly not just people trying to cross the border, but immigrants in the United States. So yeah, I think the family separation policies were happening at the border. But now, as you can clearly hear him talking about, this is a recent, I believe a recent.
Yeah, this is more than that. So I just wanted to make clear, like, when you're talking about migrants reaching the Mexico-United States border, seeking asylum, which is a legal process, by the way.
Right.
And in the Trump admin, they were being separated from their families and put into basically kid camps and adult camps. And they lost a ton of, they broke up families and they lost the children ostensibly.
Yes. Which is amazing.
They're now basically running on that as a successful agenda.
Right.
But they want to do that internally now. They want to find immigrants who are in the United States illegally. They'll start there. And they're going to deport them. And what goes unspoken in this clip, I think, is more to the point of we'll deport the families together. But he's talking about naturalized citizens. So children who were born in the country and are Americans by law. And he's saying he's going to deport them along with their, quote, illegal parents.
And I mean,
that should send chills down every.
It should. And even if we can't
that will open us up to something worse, where you've been in this country for 40 years and your parents were not legal and they came over 60 years ago. They may not even be alive anymore. And now they're going to deport you, an American citizen.
Yeah. But even young children, I think one of the things that I forget who it was in Trump's incoming administration or advisors that had said, we need to take a serious look at, naturalized, rights, right? The thing, even if we don't, the thing that happens here is you deport a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Right.
Obviously the parents are going with them and vice versa. If you deport their parents, I mean, even if the kids are still considered American citizens, what are they going to stay? No,
right.
You're taking your kids with you, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's also part of the plan, is that if we say we are no longer standing by, because there has always been a sort of presumption of allowing certain illegal status amongst immigrants if they have naturalized children. That's always been sort of okay, you got around it and here you are, and we're going to do the humane thing and allow you to live your lives, which is sort of a strange way of phrasing it.
Right.
And now they're saying, no, we're going to deport the parents and then they can figure out what they want to do with their children who are American citizens, who have social security numbers and go to school.
Right.
And that's what they're going to do.
And
they're going to go to a country that they've never been to.
Right.
They
don't speak the language, possibly.
Don't speak the language, possibly.
I mean, they could.
There's a lot that goes into this that is just on its face terrible.
And we're talking about could very well be 16, 17, 18-year-olds that are already working jobs. They're already paying into the tax system. I mean,
that's what I'm saying is that it leaves the door open for a lot of arguments of, well, if your parent, it's Jim Crow again, or it's not really Jim Crow, but it's sort of like were your parents or grandparents slaves, sort of that idea of if they were illegal and you're a 20-year-old who was born in America, you should be by and large an American by all the laws and rules we have in place, but they're going to consider you an illegal immigrant.
Right.
That should be terrifying.
It should be. And
everybody everywhere should be sounding alarm bells for that.
And of course, those Trump supporters who for some reason see immigrants as being the root cause of all of their other issues are celebrating this. But what's fascinating to me that I don't really understand is why the I would say the upper class in America is okay with this, because the thing that's going to happen is a lot of those families, for instance, live in apartment complex buildings. Are you
worried about how landlords will survive?
Hey, landlords, how are you going to survive? No, seriously, right? And I think they see it as a way, and maybe I'm not a landlord, right? I'm not this class of people. So I don't understand what their thought process is here, but this is going to decimate local economies. And so what are they thinking? Like, okay, this is going to free up 7 units in my 100-unit apartment complex, and then I can just charge higher rent for the next 7. I'm like, I don't understand what the thought process is for people in these local communities. This is going to hurt businesses. This is going to hurt landlords, who I really don't give a shit about. But I don't understand their thought process here. So
I don't either. And in fact, I think that every conversation about the immigration policies of the United States, or the perceived migrant problem that the right loves to talk about, needs to start with a baseline of, why do we care about migrants coming into this country? Like, there are a lot of straw men out there around crime, and
it's always crime.
Not paying their fair share. And
it's both. Those are the top two.
And so migration historically has always been good for countries.
Right.
People want to move into countries that are good, and they improve upon that.
Right.
And in fact, we have an entire system in place that supports it on a temporary measure through work visas and green cards and the like. And so you could already make the stance of, well, there's a certain type of immigrant that you really want coming here.
Yes. And I'll be honest with you, that's generally who comes anyway, whether it be a hardworking immigrant or a smarter than hardworking. Oof. I mean more directed at a like a skill that's not just labor skill. So I'm talking about computer scientists,
technologists,
doctors. So you brought up a really great point that I wanted to talk about, though, was that my most recent argument with somebody who claimed to be a center-left Democrat, even, which I didn't believe, because they seem to be using Trump-esque talking points. But they were like, hey, I just want the violent illegals out. And so first point to that I don't know if we talked about on the podcast before, but I've certainly talked about in other social networks or wherever else, is that immigrants per capita commit fewer violent crimes than American citizens do. Okay, this is first and second generation immigrants. So, but just based on that fact alone, if you remove immigrants, let's just say you could snap your finger, you could Thanos immigrants out of the United States per capita becomes a more dangerous place. That's just a fact.
I mean, the statistics and the way that they're captured, that's reflected in police reports and crime statistics across the country. It doesn't matter what state you're in. It doesn't matter if you're blue or red. It's just that immigrants of almost all generations,
well, until you get to the funny
generations are less violent.
The funny part is
they grow community.
Yes, the funny part is in these studies, several studies on this, the third generation immigrants are the ones that start their crime rate goes up to match the level of the crime rate of crimes of just naturalized Americans.
It's simple entropy, right? The system's going to move toward a sort of homeostasis where everything's about this.
They're assimilated into so that's the first point. And then the second one, which you brought up as the other main argument that you usually get, is they're getting too much out of the system and they're not paying their fair share. And that is mind-numbingly false. Just they generally only get a very, very small portion of federal programs. And if that does include Medicaid, it's usually emergency Medicaid. I think we talked about this. Yeah, now I'm remembering.
We've touched on this before, the migrants issue.
On the live stream. We talked about it on the live stream.
Oh, it was on the live stream.
Yeah. So on the election live stream. I don't think we talked about it much in a podcast.
No,
before.
but it is interesting because, like you said, migrants, especially if they're first generation and technically not legal in the country, let's say that they've outlived the expiry on their visa and they're staying, right? They're not going to take from government programs because they don't want the government to know that they're there.
Right.
So very heavily incentivized to not take
Right.
from government handout, welfare, Medicaid, etc.
Food stamps. You'll see.
Stamps, anything.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Health and Human Service, any of the branches of government that deal in helping people.
And the counter, and like I see ridiculous posts like on X last night. Somebody was sharing, "Oh, I found this immigrant's $14,000 EBT receipt." Just nonsense like that, guys. It's just nonsense. I mean, the numbers don't lie. So that's
Right.
on immigration, and there's a couple more things I wanted to say on Satan over here, or this guy Homan, whatever his name is. I don't know if you remember this. I remember it. I had to read about it to refresh my memory because so much has happened. But
Right.
do you remember in 2017 he falsely accused an undocumented immigrant of starting the Northern Carolina wildfires? Do you remember that?
I remember some vagueness around that. I remember there was it was sort of akin to Elon Musk calling that guy, the cave guy, a pedophile.
Right,
And it's just
exactly.
one of those things that like it happens and then there's a news cycle about it and I go, man, what a dick, and then we move on.
Yeah. So he was ICE director at the time, so that was his role in the first administration. He was just basically saying, "Oh yeah, this undocumented immigrant is the one who started the Northern California wildfires." And I mean, I can go on and on about this guy, his attacks on
I think
sanctuary
we
citizens.
could do an entire episode
Yeah.
on immigration because it's a fascinating subject and one that we're going to see ramp up in terms of rhetoric used.
Right.
We're going to hear a lot about, quote, anchor babies. We're going to hear about the cities. I can't remember the names of them.
Sanctuary cities?
Something sanctuary cities. Thank you. And we're going to hear about just migrants abusing the system. It's going to come to the forefront, and I'm going to call it that we're going to be let down by our media presence, and they're not going to push back in any of the lies that are being told.
Yeah.
I do worry with this guy in charge that the biggest problem we're going to see is around the 14th Amendment. They're going to allow naturalized citizenship. So the children who are born in the United States will be American citizens, but then they're going to deport their parents.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And without question.
And
none of this, oh, have you been here for 17 years and have a life and a family? Get out. We're deporting you. Your kids can stay.
Yeah.
And they're like, maybe my kid's 5 years old. What do you mean they can stay? What are you going to do with them?
Right. It's funny, you and I had a little bit of, not an argument, but we were kind of going back and forth.
You and I argue.
Well, we argue every day, all the time. But we discussed, what does this guy's appointment actually mean for immigration and the numbers on immigration. Right. I think we talked a little bit last time about, the billions of dollars it costs per year just to deport, the 1.1 million immigrants that they deported in 2023. And I think we were talking about military intervention and what it would take to move immigrants out of sanctuary cities. And then he immediately turned around and said, yeah, you know what, I think that we'll probably end up utilizing.
He was quoted, he said that he plans on requiring military intervention, which means we're going to turn American military against American citizens in the name of deporting supposed illegal immigrants.
And I guarantee you they will set up volunteer programs.
Oh yeah, there's going to be jackboots and brown shirts. I mean, that's just what they're going to do. And we saw this. We knew this was coming once the Supreme Court ruled on the Texas abortion issue. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was called, but ostensibly it made every citizen of Texas into a pseudo deputy who could oust someone.
Yeah, you could rat them out. Yeah,
and then you get 10 grand for it. So they deputized every single person in Texas. And what you're going to see as this guy takes control is that they'll institute similar plans, particularly in blue states like New York and California, but also in populous states like Texas and Florida. And they're going to have people who are happy to wear the flag and look, they're going to stop people with brown skin on the streets and demand to see their papers.
Yeah.
And when they don't comply, they're going to make a citizen's arrest, and then
It's going to get violent.
It's going to get very ugly.
Yeah. I mean, guys, I just want to say, I think there's a lot of hyperbole out there. And I think we can often fall into that, especially pre-election. But now, as things are actually happening, I think we're not speaking from that place anymore. I mean, I think we're going to see.
And I hope that we are. I swear to God, I hope that I'm speaking hyperbolic here. I hope that I'm overblowing this entire situation. But I see this man. I hear what he is planning to do, and I see the economic and military roads to accomplishing those goals.
Yeah.
And I don't see other avenues.
I think
there were other ways to do it that didn't involve like bringing in the military or deputizing American citizens in sanctuary states or cities like that, then I think that they would do that because it would be less resistance from everyone else. But I don't see another way to do mass deportations on the scale that they're talking about. So if their end goal is mass deportations of the 10 to 11 million undocumented immigrants that are estimated to be in the country, then it's going to require military intervention and logistics, the likes of which we've never seen before.
I think I gave you my number and then made a really sadistic joke that maybe Polymarket would let us bet on this.
That's the other thing, is that a lot of people are going to make a lot of money on this because this is going to require budgetary constraints that aren't in any budget. The military can help, but the military is based for boots on ground, not necessarily logistics of moving people. So I don't even know. Like, think about if you're
private
a
prisons
manufacturer. Yeah, private prisons
are going to make money.
They're going to make money in holdings. There's going to be the first American-made car manufacturer that comes out with like a designed cheap bus that is security style for moving hundreds of people at a time for hundreds of miles at a time is going to get immediate contracts with the United States government. It's very, very frightening. I can only laugh to keep from screaming, frankly.
Okay, I could go. Well,
we'll talk about immigration in another episode because there's a ton to go over there, and it's nuanced, and the context is important, and you'll see why I'm demonizing this guy specifically in that episode. But there are other appointments to talk to, Nate. Who do we want to talk to next?
Do you recognize this guy? My guess is you probably don't.
I'm happy I don't. He doesn't look like the type of individual that I would get along with at the bar.
Okay, well, let me play this clip for you. Okay, and then for those of you, maybe you, and for those at home, then I can explain who this guy is.
Okay.
Independence Day is almost here. We're getting ready in the Hegseth household.
Well,
we celebrate America, Old Glory, and the freedoms our forefathers fought to establish. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to bear arms, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know the thing, as Joe likes to say. We also know we're one nation under God. There are a lot of folks trying to divide us right now, but we know who we are. We love God, our families, and our republic. Your support of veteran-owned, American-made, anti-woke companies like Palmetto State Armory, Caliber Coffee, Right to Bear Self-Defense, and AAC Ammunition keeps us strong at home. We vote with our feet and our dollars to stay free. To that end, AAC just rolled out a new line of AK-47 ammo. That's right, because Russian ammo is now banned. So now you can buy American-made 7.62. That's what I'm talking about.
Boom.
Check the text below for more info. Happy Independence Day, everybody. From our family to yours, God bless America.
God bless America.
I'm very happy I don't know who that is.
Pete Hegseth.
I was right. We wouldn't get along at a bar.
You would not get along at a bar. Pete Hegseth is a Fox News co-host.
Of course he is. I mean, that makes sense.
He's just a Fox News co-host.
He's got that a certain something about him.
Yeah, and he served in the military and the National Guard, and God forbid, I don't want to downplay his accomplishments, because people on the right are already saying, "Whoa, you don't care about what his accomplishments don't mean anything. You don't care." They're doing the faux outrage thing, where for some reason now they suddenly do care if you disparage members of the military. But I say all this not because this is just some random guy and I wanted to talk about Fox News co-hosts on today's episode. We're actually talking about Trump appointments. Say hello to the new Secretary of Defense.
All right. I mean, that's pretty good. It got me there.
Did I get you? Is that literally the
I thought it was going
Secretary?
to be lower than that. Secretary of Defense seems a little high for someone I've never heard of before. What was his rank?
He served as an officer in the Army National Guard. I don't think he was a high rank.
National Guard.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the one that the Republicans make fun of.
He lacks extensive high-level military leadership experience. Complete lack of high-level military leadership experience. He has specifically been vocal about purging military leadership that he views to be insufficiently supportive of Trump's agenda.
There it is.
Yeah,
there it is.
He talks about that.
That's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one.
That's
how you get a cabinet position.
He's been very vocal about women not having a place in the military, which is
I saw his statement on that, and I think that's again a nuanced and interesting discussion to have. His position is ostensibly he doesn't think that women should be boots on the ground in military operations. So when you're doing the Iraq war, you don't want women to be carrying guns and driving the tanks and all that stuff. But that's probably his less insane position. Like that one, you can like almost understand his position. Maybe you don't agree with it. But you can at least say, well, that's an opinion that I understand. I don't understand like trying to oust military personnel who just don't agree with the president. That's sort of their job, is to do their job first for the country,
right,
and second for the president. But okay,
I mean,
the commander-in-chief orders you have to. So
he has, I don't know if you could see it in there, but he has the Deuce Volt tattoo, which is associated with white supremacist ideology. So
I'm shocked.
Totally shocked by that. I mean, that's actually more that actually makes the most sense. That's more of a requirement.
It does. I will say there is a brand amongst Trump loyalists, and having ties to white nationality or Christian nationality or both usually run high that list.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, I think the point of bringing him up, other than completely unqualified Fox News co-host, all of that nonsense, is that his nomination can be seen as prioritizing loyalty to Trump over
and we've talked about this in previous episodes as well, where we say that in Trump's first term he surrounded himself with a combination of yes men who he just knew would say yes to him for whatever he did, and then political figures who at the very least were seemingly receptive to his style of governance. And so we saw very little, but some pushback from his appointed positions. For instance, Bill Burr. Bill Burr definitely pushed back. But Bill Barr was actually his AG, and he pushed back in the sense that he told him no in no uncertain terms on a few big important things. And there were other members of his cabinet. I mean, he went through press chiefs. I forget what they're called. Secretary of something, and they would talk to the press all the time. It went through 30 of them or whatever it was.
You're talking about why did you do that to me?
Like Jeff Sessions and
Jeff Sessions was Attorney General.
You're right. He was the Attorney General before Bill Barr. That's my bad. I was actually talking about his press secretaries.
Press secretary.
He went through a bunch of them.
Right.
Because they wouldn't just do, in many cases, whatever he said. But this time around, his second engagement, he is not playing that game. He has decided that his loyalists will be better suited than people with political experience, and maybe because they don't have political experience, they would be more willing to bend to his order or desire.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's by the way, I'll point out there was another major event that I didn't want to talk about, but it kind of ties into this, is that the next Senate Majority Leader has been elected today, and that was John Thune, and he beat out Rick Scott, who was the MAGA choice.
Presumptive, yeah,
and I'll get to how this ties in a second. Rick Scott, who I can't, even Floridians hate. I don't understand how he was reelected, but I mean, I guess I do. MAGA is very, very upset about this. They're already like, we need to take down the rhinos in the midterms. We got to primary these people. Fantastic. But going back to this Hegseth pick and some of the next picks that we're going to talk about, there are Republican senators that feel like this is going to be a hard guy to get through the confirmation process. I don't believe it yet. I mean, I feel like the thing that Republicans seem to do a little bit better than Democrats is come to a consensus, other than for some reason Speaker of the House and Senate Majority Leader.
That's just what they do. They whip.
Yeah.
No, I would argue that in that case, they whipped even better. They ruled from the minority pulpit of their own base. So they were in the House. They didn't have a speakership to talk about. They certainly didn't have consensus with the rest of the Republicans. Right. And they just held up the ball until they got their way. I mean, they're great at that. And even more so in the Senate, even when they were obstructing positions and appointments from Democrats, Obama and then Biden. When the Democrats didn't hold the Senate, they were not nearly as effective in holding up appointments, although I think that this time they'll probably be more galvanized in not allowing people of this nature through, one would hope.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see as the confirmations hearings start. Like once one of these crazy picks get through, that's when you know how the rest is going to go.
Well, there's that, and then there's another added wrinkle in that it seems like Trump is positioning himself as of today, this morning, to try and get the House and the Senate to recess early so that he can do recess appointments. Which it has its own. We could go into that another time, but it's a very storied subject that 3 current sitting Republican, like hard right SCOTUS members have penciled in against Obama. So there's precedent there that they have said that's not the way we do things.
Yeah.
But nothing has stopped them from being hypocritical in the past.
Right.
So maybe they'll say, oh, that was just when we had Democrats in charge.
Right.
Now that it's Republicans, it's actually perfectly legal. So who knows? Because there isn't an official SCOTUS ruling. It was just a penned letter from those justices stating how this can't be illegal, please stop. Or can't be legal, please stop, rather.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There might be a situation in which both chambers take recess early and Trump pushes this guy through without appointment, and SCOTUS says, yeah, that's fine. And then you have him without ever sitting in front of the Senate and answering questions.
I hope that it has to come to that. Like, I don't want that to be the outcome. But I think that the Senate is going to confirm basically all of Trump's picks. And there's another wrinkle, if we want to throw our second wrinkle in there, is that Elon Musk is apparently privately saying, it's being reported, that any challenge to Trump's appointments are going to be met with the full force of the America PAC.
Just money.
It's just money. In upcoming primary challenges and elections.
Right.
So the whole point, as I understand it, I don't know if you took civics, but the whole point, as I understand it, of being a U.S. senator is getting reelected. I believe that's the only.
Seems to be the only thing that we do now.
Yeah. So if that's their number one priority.
And you are right. What is the Senate currently sitting for Trump's first congressional term?
Is it 52?
Is it 51?
51? 51 with a independent that may caucus on either side. Let's see.
Right. And so that means that you're absolutely right. He may not need absentee appointments. Now, the challenge there is that the Democrats can.
Wait, sorry. Does this say 53? How did I? Huh? What?
I don't know.
This says this says 53 and 2 independents. So there you go.
Interesting. One of them is Bernie, and is the other?
One is Bernie, and the other is Angus King.
Oh, right. Okay. That makes sense.
So I think they're putting the other.
Hold on. So there is there is an opportunity for the Democrats to obstruct in the nominations and appointments voting in the same way that Mitch McConnell did from basically 2010 until now.
Sure.
And I think that they'd be very smart to do so, because this is clearly Trump, and he has only 4 years. Big asterisk next to that we will talk about in another episode.
Or we could just touch upon briefly here and then go into more detail in another episode.
We're going to do it in another episode.
All right.
And so slowing him down in his appointments, especially in the judicial level. So imagine Thomas or somebody resigns from the Supreme Court knowing that their seat is safe, then you're going to have to filibuster for 4 years, because you cannot allow Trump to set that appointment.
Right.
And the same is true at the federal level. You don't want to have federal judges that Trump appoints, because they're going to be more like Judge Cannon, or was it Judge Cannon, which is the one that basically threw out his court case in Florida for the documents.
Oh yeah. Is it Cannon? I forget now.
I think it was Cannon. There's so many of them now. It's not. Anyway, you need to prevent him from nominating as many federal judges as possible. Now, these appointments to Secretary of Defense is sort of important, but obviously he's going to make an appointment to the Secretary of the Interior. That doesn't really matter to most Americans, although it'll probably help with ICE, for instance. So you want to think about these and strategically be opposed to them throughout this entire 2-term cycle of the Trump presidency.
And I got a little sad here as I was looking at this map and seeing the 53-47. But then if you notice the grayed out sections, those are the ones that obviously they'll
be up in the midterms.
They'll be up in the midterms. And look at where they are. I mean, if you're talking about trying to win,
they're not in the greatest of places. Now, I'll say North Carolina, Illinois, and Oregon, maybe Colorado.
Yeah,
maybe
Colorado
Iowa.
Probably.
Those ones will have some solid blues.
But you're talking about probably maintaining seats.
Maintaining seats, not flipping seats.
Yeah.
The only seats you might have a chance of flipping are probably going to be in Georgia, and maybe one in Colorado. It really, really depends. But
off the top of my head, I don't even know who's there right now, so I couldn't say the chances of that. But
no, I mean, but you can imagine a Senate race in Georgia where they run a Stacey Abrams or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Or a Tulsi Gabbard. Wait a minute.
Wait. So I wanted
talking about Tulsi Gabbard.
I wanted to move us forward here because honestly, I was like, boy, will we have enough air to fill with if we just go over maybe 4 appointments. But yeah, we're spending about 20 minutes each because we do have a lot to say about each of these people. So here's for the people at home that are listening, I've got a tweet from Tulsi Gabbard up here that says, "Hey, real Donald Trump, being Saudi Arabia's bitch is not America first." And I would argue that she's actually right?
Like from 2018.
This is from 2018.
That was 2 years into his presidency. It was November, so it was deep into his presidency in the first 2 years.
And she, by the way, was very critical of Donald Trump's first term for a variety of different reasons, none of which really from the Democratic angle. It was more about, hey, I thought you were going to be America first. Hey, I thought you were, she had already kind of shown her true colors. She had started going on Russian state media. She's done, and I'm not calling Tucker Carlson, but it's Russian state media, but you could argue. She's also done Tucker Carlson. The reason why I am bringing her up is because she is Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence. I mean, what can you say something? Can somebody say something to me before I say something to them?
Before you have that aneurysm pop in your head and it all goes black. No, nobody can say anything to you. Tulsi Gabbard has been fairly credibly connected with Russian state sponsorship programs. And there was even floated the idea that she might have run back in 2019, that she might have run in 2020 as an independent to try and split the vote from Biden. She didn't end up doing that, obviously, but there was it was a national security letter, I believe, that said that there was mutterings in Russian state affiliated news sources saying that was potentially a plan. So, and I said this to you offline, where I said this is like watching The Departed all over again. They're putting the mole in charge of finding the mole. If you're in charge of intelligence in the country and you're potentially a Russian operative, I don't have anything better than that. That's just that's Hollywood being Hollywood.
I mean, I responded to you that, hey, let's just at least remember that Mark Wahlberg put one into Matt Damon at the end of that movie. So Mark Wahlberg, if you're listening, but we liked the ending of the movie. Okay, so first I want to say, and if you know me, you know that I am no fan of Hillary Clinton. But I think it was 2016 that Tulsi Gabbard was included in the Democratic primaries. I think she was running.
She was a Democrat at the time.
Yeah, yes. She even ran for president. And Hillary Clinton called her out as without any evidence as being groomed by the Russians, as being a Russian propaganda agent. And so Hillary didn't provide any evidence on this, but as the years started going by here, it's now 8 years later, there are a number of things that you could look at and say, I'm a little concerned. There's alleged Russian agents like Alina Branson who have made donations to Gabbard's campaigns in the past. Like I already mentioned, going on Russian-sponsored state media. She's criticized the U.S. sanctions against Russia. She has talked about conspiracy theories around labs in Ukraine and why we needed to.
She feeds into the mis and disinformation machine rather effectively, as you would expect from one who maybe isn't trying to increase the level of intelligence of the people who are reading it.
Yeah, and you
say something as well. I want to just circle back to you.
Sure.
You said that you're not the biggest Hillary Clinton fan. I'm not either, but they were both at the primary in 2015 vying to be the candidate on the bill to run for president, right, as a Democrat not.
Right.
Hillary Clinton had she was the Secretary of State in Obama's White House for 4 years.
Right.
Secretary of State is privileged to see a number of intelligence briefings that regular people don't get to see. So saying that she said it without a shred of evidence, I would say, well, she said it without providing any evidence, but she's not the type of person who would go off and call somebody a pedophile just for being in a cave with kids. So I think that if she said that, there's at least a nugget of that coming from the real world.
Okay, if that's correct, and actually that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say, I would hope that through some legal means to do so, like let's say the administration that is still currently, by the way, Biden is still president, right? It's November 13th right now, everybody. Biden is still president. So
it is.
If any of that is true, for God's sakes, we need somebody needs to say something.
I will say that there is a certain amount of, I don't know if Biden's asleep at the wheel here or what, and I wouldn't blame him. The guy's in his 80s and he's probably tired of all this bullshit. And
yeah.
So am I, man.
Yeah. Oh, he looked very happy today.
He's on the happy pills. Leave him alone.
Yeah. All right.
But no, I do agree. If there is anything, state intel or otherwise, that you could declassify or partially declassify and release to media outlets about certain members of these appointments, then I would start doing that now, before you don't have access to those files anymore.
Right.
You know, unless he takes a bunch of boxes with him back to Delaware and puts them in a shower and whatnot.
Sure.
Yeah. Which he's legally allowed to do.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I mean, we saw that play out. I don't have, I mean, I'm going to have a lot more to say about this particular.
This one's insane to me. Again, this is one that I think is a disinformation machine, and you're putting her in charge of national intelligence, which is.
And you would think that would be
bizarre.
The most insane of all of the picks that I wanted to talk about today. But I think I have one that is, I would say, I mean, the Tulsi.
This is the one that was released right before we started recording.
This
right?
is the one where I was like, okay, I was starting to talk about the cabinet picks for an upcoming episode, and I was like, all right, let's scrap all that. I had to bail on a whole bunch of research that we had already done for today's episode, and then quickly put together some notes, because this next one is fucking mind-blowing to me. Okay, so I'm just gonna put his stupid face on the screen here. I literally can. I swear I'm having a very hard time with this still. You posted this in our podcast channel that we have, and you said for those of you that don't know, I have Matt Gaetz up on the screen right now. You said Trump has picked Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General, and I LOL'd, like, okay, okay, that's like, oh, we were doing jokes back and forth.
This
like,
is perfect us humor, by the way.
Yeah. This
like we were speaking the day before, and Nate's like, who do you think he's going to pick for AG? And I would say as a joke, Matt Gaetz. And
right.
we would both laugh.
We'd laugh and laugh. And that's so fun. This is New York Times pitch bot kind of humor, right? So I said, no way. Like, that's funny. And then you linked the actual story, which I had to triple check the domain, and then I had to go and verify. And then I cannot believe Matt Gaetz is Trump's pick for Attorney General. There is no way this gets through the Senate, right? Forget about everything I said earlier about everything would get confirmed through the Senate. Is there any way? Is there any way that this happens?
Yeah. I mean, aside from the ways that we've discussed previously, like absentee push-throughs or just straight up whipping the vote. But I mean, does it hold any credible notion to a sane government? I don't think so.
So the House Ethics Committee is currently investigating Gaetz on multiple serious allegations.
Things.
Including the right's favorite thing, I guess, which is sex trafficking of a minor. I mean, I thought if anyone was against sex trafficking of a minor, from what I've heard, it's, the people that go into, pizza restaurants in DC and threaten to shoot the place up if they don't release the kids in the basement. What is happening? First of all,
I don't know. We've talked about this on previous episodes, and I have to say that it always felt like when I was younger that there was an adult in the room. And when somebody would do something like this, the adults in the room would say, no, that's ridiculous. And then they would go on and do something different. But I have to say that they don't seem like there are any adults in the room anymore. I don't know why.
I mean, this is literally what we were just saying about Tulsi Gabbard. And kind of what you're saying, what we say about Trump, right? I mean, Trump being president. I mean, Jack Smith, you may have seen today, is resigned or resigning from the special counsel.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, fantastic. There you go. I would love to keep you up to date. He's resigned.
I mean,
that's
he's
it.
Running an investigation that will never.
It's over. Those investigations are over, right? So now we're putting
Trump will become president, or him to stop.
Right.
Or his AG will, which is the guy who will, Matt Gaetz. because he doesn't have jurisdiction over the Justice Department. Matt Gaetz will.
He's just so Jack Smith is just resigning. So now we've got a guy who is being investigated for illicit drug use, sexual misconduct, sex trafficking, accepting improper gifts, attempting to obstruct government investigations, attempting to obstruct DOJ investigations, and we're going to put him in charge of the DOJ. Is that am I understanding that correctly?
I think you are. I mean, yeah, the Attorney General has more than just oversight of the DOJ, obviously, but just seems like not great.
This is a guy who
for the campaign that just harped on and beat the war drums over and over about the weaponization of the Justice Department. That is exactly what he's doing here.
Oh, I mean,
he's going to use it and wield it as a weapon.
The hypocrisy.
We're going to see indictments into people who just Democrats you've never heard of.
Yeah,
they're going to be embattled and in legal battles for the next 4 years.
And listen, there's hypocrisy on both sides, but my thing is simply this: don't commit crimes if you don't want to be investigated. Okay. So Donald Trump, there's a very good reason that Donald Trump committed crimes in front of all of us. I mean, you can't not do something about that. Hunter Biden, I would argue, with all of the nonsense and the Republicans making it a bigger deal than it actually was, there were reasons to investigate Hunter Biden. Maybe not at the level, maybe not it wasn't a DOJ thing, maybe whatever. But there were reasons, and he was found liable for certain things. Fine.
But also, he's not an elected official.
He's not an elected official.
I don't care about.
I have already said I would not vote for Hunter Biden ever again.
And the House, at the very least, had small committees investigating Joe Biden's relationship with his son in any alleged misconduct. Right. They found nothing.
Right. So that's my thing as far as the hypocrisy of it all goes. You shouldn't weaponize the DOJ, but also don't commit crimes.
I'm starting to see that crime pays here. If I've learned anything from the Trump administration's two first term and then incumbent second term, it's that you can do crime and it's fine as long as you eventually wield the power that would stand to bring you to justice.
I mean, Steve. So listen, Steve Bannon, I was going to use as an example. There are a lot of members of Trump's previous administration. I want to say it was somewhere in is it 40 or more that ended up in prison or in his orbit.
Yeah.
And frankly,
it's played that great clip of the guy being like, "Steve, when are we going to storm the?"
Right. When are we going to storm the CBS? And it's feeling like that's what's going to happen here again, right? Like this administration is looking like a bunch of people that are going to either end up in prison once his administration is over, or during his administration somehow, or
I don't know. Here's what let's end on a plus note.
Okay, give me a plus note to end on. We're about wrapping up.
This is my thing. This is how I'm going to help out with this. Okay. Is that this time around, as I said earlier, Trump is not going to have certain key members of his cabinet be career politicians who know how to do the job. And on the one hand, that means he will have yes men like Matt Gaetz, like that tattooed fellow I would get in a fight with at the bar, doing his every beck and whim, right? However, many of these people are so deeply unqualified for the positions that they're being thrust into that I believe that they will be so wildly unsuccessful just by virtue of not knowing what to do or how to do it in the proper channels.
I can't.
I expect them to basically be stuck in mire for the first 2 years.
I mean, as I pointed out, Pence's liaison to the Homeland Security said that Thomas Homan was ineffective, basically, but he was effective in doing a lot of damage.
Yes, no, there's going to be damage done, and I I fully acknowledge that we're going to have to fight against a lot of it all the way. And that we know that Trump won. We know that there's a fight ahead of us, but putting people with no experience in these positions can only hurt the Trump admin, because they all have the same goals, but they don't have the same skill sets or connections within various organizations to get things done the way they want to get them done. They're going to have to do some bridge building with people who aren't in the MAGA orbit.
Right.
And they've proven again and again that they're not good at that.
Yeah.
So there is a silver lining here, is that things will move slowly, I suspect, at the very least at the start, but maybe all the way through. And they're going to be fought tooth and nail.
Okay, I'll take, you know what? Jesus
You'll
Christ.
take ineffective at this stage.
That's ending on a good note. Oh my God.
There's other good notes. We'll get into some good notes in a future episode. Right now we're talking about these appointments, and because they are so incredibly,
this is just the first
interesting.
couple of days of these appointments. I mean, I who knows what else we're going to see. We didn't even talk about Elon and Vishik being appointed co-heads of the Department of Government Efficiency, because there's nothing more
that doesn't exist. They're putting people in charge of it who never increase efficiency with anything that they've ever worked with.
Right. Well, I mean, you could argue
they have. It's not at all clear to me. I need to do research on this. That you can just create a new branch of government.
No. Well, it's not a branch, right? But
I'm sorry, not a branch. Sorry,
a department, right?
A department of government without approval from either Congress.
No, I don't think so. Right? Like even Space Force
right
needed.
Now is you're in charge of like kitty make believe time.
But what's really funny to me about this kitty make believe time is what is more inefficient than saying we're going to create a new department. It's going to be called the Department of Government Efficiency. And by the way, we're going to have 2 people lead it.
Yeah, we're going to have 2 people.
What the?
So
what
efficient. There are 2 CEOs.
God damn. That's hilarious.
Like I said in the previous episode, their optics on all these things are just going to be terrible. Okay. Another thing to be positive about.
Okay.
And I want you to hear this,
I'll
because
hear it.
You and I know that this, you
right.
can't even argue with me on this.
I'm not going to.
They are going to have negative optics from now until 26. That's just what they're going to have.
Sure.
We're going to need to get out there and absolutely murder during the midterms. I mean, we need to flip 20 House seats and 7 Senate seats.
Right.
Like that's what we need to do realistically.
Yeah.
And we need to run people who are just popular on the bad optics of the opponent and how we're going to fight.
Yeah. You know, the very long election cycle of 2024 made me really sad. But I guess I'm ready to start the election cycle for the midterms like now. Just as long as I'm thinking about it as like a fight right now, I feel like it's making me feel a little bit better about how quickly this 4 years could go.
You're Michael Scott from The Office. You're ready to be heard again.
Yeah. God damn it. Okay, I want to say really quick before we wrap up today, we are definitely looking to start having guests on the show. And frankly, right, one of the ways that guests are willing to come on, the reasons they're willing to come on, is if we have a broad reach and we can show that we have a broad reach. I think that the first couple of episodes we've really started to pick up, both on looking at our statistics on Apple and Spotify, as well as the YouTube is starting to pick up subscribers. So if you are enjoying the podcast and you haven't already, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything just to subscribe. It helps us out both with optics for getting new folks on the podcast, and just also our frankly desire and will to go on. So help us out there. Like, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple or on Spotify, hit us with that 5-star. That really just helps us keep making great quality content for you. So until next time, I'm Nate.
I'm Mike.
And
we're Blue Sedition.
All right.